Picture this. After 6 years of relentless bombing during the Second World War, London lay in ruins. Entire neighbourhoods reduced to rubble, families huddled in shelters, their homes obliterated by enemy fire. The destruction was unfathomable, with over 70,000 homes completely destroyed and another 170,000 damaged beyond repair. Yet somehow, incredibly, today's housing crisis has managed to become even worse than what Londoners faced in 1945. That's not hyperbole. That's not clickbait. That's the cold, hard reality facing millions of people right now. The statistics are staggering, and they reveal a problem so deep, so systemic, that it makes post-war devastation look like a minor setback in comparison. If you want to stay ahead of the UK's property market collapse and understand exactly what's happening to our economy, hit that like button and subscribe to Property Reporter right now, because what's coming next will completely change how you see Britain's future. Let's talk numbers, because they tell a story politicians don't want you to hear. In 1945, despite the catastrophic damage from the Blitz, London had roughly 3.2 million residential properties for a population of about 8.2 million people. That's approximately one home for every 2.5 residents. Fast forward to today, and London has approximately 3.7 million homes for a population exceeding 9 million. Do the math and you'll find we now have one home for every 2.4 residents. On paper that looks slightly better, right? Wrong. Because here's what those figures don't show you. Back then, multiple generations living together was the cultural norm, not a desperate necessity. Families chose to share space. Today, every metric shows people want independent living arrangements. Young professionals expect their own flat. Couples need space before starting families. The demand for individual housing units has exploded while supply has crawled at a snail's pace. When you factor in this fundamental shift in living expectations, we're not just facing a shortage. We're staring down a catastrophic deficit that makes the post-war period look almost manageable. But the comparison gets even more disturbing when you examine what happened after the bombs stopped falling. The British government didn't mess around. They launched the most ambitious housing programme in the nation's history. The Housing Act of 1946 set a target of building 300,000 to 400,000 new homes every single year. And here's the kicker. They actually delivered. By 1951, local authorities had constructed over 1 million new council homes. These weren't luxury apartments or investment properties. They were quality housing designed for ordinary working families who'd just survived a war. The construction pace was relentless, focused, and backed by genuine political will. Prefabricated homes went up in weeks. Entire estates materialised in months. The country treated housing like the national emergency it was. Compare that to our response today, and the contrast is absolutely shameful. In the last decade, Britain has consistently failed to build even 200,000 homes per year, let alone the 340,000 experts say we actually need. We're not at war. We're not rebuilding from rubble. Yet somehow we've convinced ourselves that constructing half the homes of a bombed-out nation is acceptable. Now here's where it gets personal for millions of people. After World War II, a newly built home in London cost roughly 3 to 4 times the average annual salary. A working-class family could realistically save for a deposit and buy a home within a few years of steady employment. Even renting was affordable, with council housing available at rates that took up maybe 20 to 25% of a family's income. The system wasn't perfect, but it functioned. It gave people hope and a genuine path to stability. Flash forward to right now, and the numbers are so absurd they barely seem real. The average London home costs approximately 14 times the average salary. Some areas push past 20 times annual earnings. A deposit alone requires savings that would take the typical worker over 15 years to accumulate, and that's assuming they never spend a single penny on anything else. Meanwhile, rent consumes 40, 50, sometimes 60% of people's monthly income. Young professionals with good jobs find themselves trapped in house shares well into their 30s. Families squeeze into one-bedroom flats because that's all they can afford. The wealth gap between property owners and renters has become a chasm that swallows entire generations. What makes this crisis even more infuriating is that we know exactly why it's happening, and we're choosing to do nothing about it. After the war, the government controlled land use and directed resources towards solving the housing emergency. Profit took a backseat to necessity. Building regulations existed, but didn't strangle projects in red tape for years on end. Planning permission was streamlined because people understood that families sleeping in bomb shelters needed homes more than committees needed endless consultation periods. Today, we've created a system perfectly designed to prevent housing from being built. Greenbelt restrictions lock up land around cities even when development would cause minimal environmental impact. NIMBY campaigning blocks projects for years over concerns about blocked views and neighbourhood character. Planning applications that should take months drag on for years, adding massive costs that get passed to buyers. And behind it all sits a comfortable class of existing homeowners who've watched their property values skyrocket and have zero interest in seeing that gravy train stop. These people vote, they donate to politicians, they show up to planning meetings, and they've successfully rigged the entire system to protect their housing wealth at the expense of everyone else. Then there's the investment problem that nobody in power wants to tackle. In 1945, homes were places where people lived. That was their function and their purpose. Sure, they had value and could be sold, but property wasn't treated as a commodity to be traded, flipped, and hoarded for profit. Today, London property has become an international investment vehicle. Wealthy individuals from around the world park money in London real estate because it's seen as safer than banks and more profitable than stocks. Entire developments get sold off plan to overseas investors who never intend to live in them. Luxury flats sit empty in the heart of the city, bought purely as assets to appreciate in value. Meanwhile, ordinary people who actually work in London and contribute to its economy are priced out entirely. The market has been completely distorted by treating housing as investment rather than homes. And every politician who's tried to address this has faced such fierce resistance from the property lobby that they've backed down almost immediately. Additional homes tax? Minimal impact. Foreign buyer restrictions? Full of loopholes. Vacancy taxes? Barely enforced. The game is rigged and everyone knows it, but nothing changes because too many powerful people benefit from keeping it exactly as it is. Let's get real about what this means for Britain's future, because the consequences go far beyond housing. When people spend 60% of their income on rent, they don't spend money in local businesses. When young professionals can't afford to live near their jobs, productivity suffers and talent leaves for other cities or countries. When families can't find stable housing, children's education and development suffer. The housing crisis isn't just about property. It's strangling the entire economy and creating social problems that will take generations to fix. Mental health issues have skyrocketed among renters facing constant insecurity and unaffordable costs. Birth rates have plummeted because people can't afford space for children. Geographic mobility has frozen because moving means losing your rental and facing even higher costs elsewhere. We're watching an entire generation locked out of the wealth building and stability that property ownership provided their parents. And the resentment this creates, the sense that the system is fundamentally broken and unfair, is tearing at the social fabric in ways we're only beginning to understand. The post-war generation rebuilt from ruins and created opportunity. We've inherited prosperity and turned it into a rigged casino where most people never even get a seat at the table. So where does this end? Right now, we're on a path toward a divided Britain that would shock anyone who lived through the war years. We're creating a society of haves and have-nots, based almost entirely on whether your parents owned property. Inheritance is becoming the only realistic way most people will ever own a home. If your family has property, you'll probably be okay eventually. If they don't, you're likely facing a lifetime of renting, at the mercy of landlords, unable to build wealth or security. This isn't sustainable economically or socially. At some point, something has to give. Either we'll see political movements demanding radical change, possibly including mass seizure or redistribution of property, or we'll accept becoming a nation of renters with a small landlord class controlling everyone else's housing. Neither option is appealing, but those are the directions we're heading. The third possibility, the one that requires actual courage and leadership, is a comprehensive program to build housing on a scale not seen since the 1950s. Reform planning laws, release land for development, invest in council housing again, tax empty properties and foreign ownership properly. Treat housing like the national emergency it actually is. We managed it after bombs destroyed our cities. The question is whether we have the will to do it now when the destruction is economic rather than physical. Because make no mistake, what's happening to millions of people trapped in this crisis is a form of devastation every bit as real as anything the Luftwaffe accomplished, and future generations will judge us by whether we chose to fix it or looked the other way